Hey guys, good morning. I hope that you have a great Wednesday today. We're going to continue our learning of converting units of measurement. Remember, all that means is changing one unit of measurement into another unit of measurement. And they're equivalent, they just look different. We're either making less really big pieces of something, or we're making more really small pieces of something. Okay? Now, this is a life skill, guys. It's needed when you cook. Sometimes I'll have like a pound of ground beef and I need to know how many ounces I can make out of that. It's used in building. And so this is a skill that you need to have. And the really cool thing about it, this strategy that I'm using makes it super simple. Remember, we only need to have access to a few things. We have to be able to use a T-chart for this strategy. It's not the only way to do it. It's one way. We have to understand that we're either going to multiply when we need to make a lot of smaller pieces, or we're going to divide when we need to make less bigger pieces. Okay, and it doesn't matter whether you're trying to convert measurements of length, or whether you're trying to convert measurements of weight or capacity or time. It works the same way, and you can do this. Now, if you get really stuck, make sure that you text me or message me and say, Miss Cole, can you just meet me for a conference real quick? And I'll go over this just with you live. Okay? All right, so we're going to get busy today. Now, I want you to pause this video and I want you to get a couple things because I want you to do these with me. Okay? I want you to get a pencil, a paper, and either a calculator or a multiplication chart. Because when we're finished with this, you're going to do your quizzes. Okay, so if you need to, pause the video and go get what you need. All right, so today we're going to do 3 problems, okay? And I've made some of them really big because I want you to see that no matter what, it's the same process, okay? So do this with me, okay? So our first problem, let me see if I can get my full screen on here. Our first problem that we're going to do is we're going to try to convert 2 miles, and I want to know how many feet that is. Okay, so I'm going to convert 2 miles into feet. Step 1, one of the things you have to know is how are miles and feet, how do they go together? How are they connected? And when you do your work for me, because I know you don't have a reference chart, I'm always going to tell you how they're connected. You need this piece of information, okay? So I'm going to tell you, and I always put the bigger unit first when I'm telling you this part. 1 mile is equivalent or equal to 5,280 feet. You got to know that, okay? Because that's how we set up our rule. Okay, next step, we're going to draw our T-chart. Simple. Come on, guys. Everybody can draw a T-chart. So we're still not having to think yet. We're not having to do the really big math. Now, on the left side of your T-chart, I want you to put whatever unit they gave you. See how they gave me the number of miles, but they did not give me the feet? So on my left side, I want to put miles, because that's the one I know. Okay? Now, on the right side, I'm going to put the one I'm trying to figure out. Feet. Okay? So now I've got to use this information, okay? And I'm going to give you just a second. I'll slow down so that you can do exactly what I've done. Miles into feet. Okay. So now I'm going to put in what I do know. I know that if I have 1 mile, it's the same as it's the same as having 5,280 feet. Okay. Now, I've got to think, and I want you to think. Remember, we can either multiply or divide. I put in the 1 mile, and I got out 5,280. Did I multiply the 1 times something to get that, or did I divide the 1 to get something? Take a second and just think about that, okay? All right, here's what I know. Because I put in a 1 and I got out a much bigger number, that tells me I had to multiply to get that. So I know that I've got to multiply Whatever I put on the miles side times something that would give me that. Well, 1 times anything is itself. So I know that I have to multiply by 5,280 feet. That's really messy there. So now this is the cool part, guys. Now I could solve any problem with miles and feet just by knowing that. Because it tells me every time you put in a mile, you must times it by 5,280 to get how many feet it is. Now let's plug in our problem. They told me I have 2 miles. I know that to figure out how many feet that is, I have to multiply it by 5,280. Okay? So now this takes a little bit of work. You go to your paper, write it down. See what 5,280 times 2 is. And of course, I don't care if you use a calculator for this, okay? So here we go. 0 times 2 is 0. 8 times 2 is 16. 2 times 2 is 4, and 1 more is 5. And 5 times 2 is 10. Oh my goodness. So these were really big numbers, but guys, the process was super simple. I know that 2 miles is the same as 10,560 feet. Okay? This was 2 very large pieces of measurement. This is a whole bunch of smaller pieces of measurement because miles is much smaller than feet. All right, let's try another one. Get ready. The process, no matter what, is exactly the same, okay? So the next one we're going to do, let's go to capacity, okay? Now, we're going to have 24 pints. That's what I have. Could be pints of ice cream or milk or whatever. 24 pints. That's usually what your milk in the cafeteria comes in, that size, a pint. And I want to know how many gallons that is. Okay? When I do this, I know I'm converting. I'm changing. I'm going to either multiply, divide, and I'll use my T-chart. Okay? I'm going to give you the information that you need to set this up. I need to know that 1 gallon is the same as 8 pints. Okay? Again, I give it to you because I know you may not have a reference chart with you. Next step, I set up my T-chart. I look at this and I say, well, out of gallons and pints, which one did they give me the information for? They gave me pints, so that's the one I put on my left side. I'm trying to change it into gallons, so I'll put that on my right side, okay? Now, I'm ready to plug in the information that I do know. I know that if I have 1 gallon, that's got to go on the gallon side, 1. I have 8 pints. I'll put that on the pint side, 8. Okay. Now let's look what happens. Now I have an 8 and I went to a 1. And I'm trying to make my mind up. Do I multiply or do I divide? I put in a larger number and got out a smaller. That means I'm going to divide, right? Now, let me explain what this means. It means that pints are much smaller. So if I change them into gallons, I'm trying to put them into less bigger units, okay? Next thing I have to know is 8 divided by what equals 1. These are really simple problems. I know that 8 divided by 8 is 1. So now I know anytime I'm given pints and I want to turn them into gallons, I have to follow the rule. Divide by 8, okay? Let's go back to our problem. This one says I have 24 pints. And I'm supposed to figure out how many gallons that is. So I know that, okay, my rule says that whenever I change pints into gallons, I divide by 8. 24 divided by 8. Simple. 3. So if I have 24 pints, it's the same as having 3 gallons. This is a lot of small pieces. This is less bigger pieces. Okay, let's try one more, and then you guys are going to go to quizzes and show me your learning on quizzes. Okay, here's our last one. The numbers are going to be super big. Okay, so I'm going to try to do 10,000. That's a super big number. Pounds. Remember, that's that really weird abbreviation. and I want to know how many tons that is. So I'm going to try to change pounds into tons. Let me just get that abbreviation correct, okay? So it's the same process, really big numbers, but the same process, okay? So the first thing I have to know is, how are pounds and tons related, okay? So I have to know that if I have let's see if I can spell correctly, 1 ton, it's the same as having 2,000 pounds. Okay, that's the piece of information I have to know so I can set up my rule. Next step, draw the T-chart. No thinking right now. On my T-chart, I'm going to start with whatever unit they gave me. They told me 10,000 pounds. I don't know how many tons. So that means I put the pounds on this side and the tons on this side. I'm going to try to develop a rule. Okay? Now, let's see. How many pounds do I have? Let's go to this one. Sorry. If I have 2,000 pounds, okay, that's the part I know. That means I have 1 ton. I think you're already starting to see I'm going from a larger unit to a smaller. That means I'm going to be using division. I started with the large, I end up with small. Okay? Now I just have to know, how do I get from 2,000 to 1? Well, in order when I divide to get an answer of 1, I have to divide it by itself. So I already know my rule is to divide by 2,000. Okay, there's my rule. Now I'm ready to put in what I know. I'm given 10,000 pounds. I want to know how many tons it is. I divide by 2,000. Now I could work this out, but let me tell you what I know. I know that 10 divided by 2 is 5. Okay, you're free to work it out. And I need my 3 zeros. Just like 10 divided by 2 is 5, 10,000 divided by 2,000 is 5,000. I'm sorry, is 5. Whoops. Let me get that right. Is 5. Okay? So I know that 10,000 pounds is the same as having 5 tons. Pretty easy. All right, so the next thing that you're going to do is you're going to go on to your quizzes and you're going to try to answer the 5 questions. Again, if you get stuck, just don't hesitate to text me or message me and say, can you meet with me? Bye, guys. Have a good day.